All right, well, hello, my name is Thane McGrath, and welcome to my senior project TED Talk. So, I want to step back in time for a moment. When I was 6 years old, my grandma bought me my first gaming console, which was a GameCube, and the first game I played on it was Star Wars Bounty Hunter. In this game, you play as a person by the name of Jango Fett, who hunts down people that owe his leader money. And when I say hunt, his job was to capture these people with lethal force using blasters. Now imagine I'm a 6-year-old boy playing an incredibly violent video game. What kind of impact do you think this has on my developing young brain? There's no way to know how this truly could impact me at this time, but I do know, standing here before you, that I am a calm, collected, thoughtful individual with a superior hand-eye coordination. There is the question though whether this could be true for everyone, or if some people are more impacted by aggressive content than I am, or than I was, excuse me. So this brings me to my question. Do video games produce aggressive behavior in teens, or do the positive effects outweigh the negative effects? When I first planned out my research question, I was focused strictly on whether violent video games caused violent behavior. But after doing significant amounts of research, that led me to evidence proving that video games actually can make some people display violent behavior, I realized how simple of a question that was and how deep the rabbit hole was for this research topic. So I kept the basic question I started with, but made a few tweaks. It eventually involved looking at both positive and negative effects of gaming. This includes the possible value of video games for education and medical advancements in today's world. Like I said, there is evidence that violent video games have led to aggressive or violent behavior. And there is also evidence that has shown correlation between children displaying violent tendencies and playing violent video games. This evidence was most prominent in the article, Priming Effects of Computer Game Violence on Children's Aggression Levels. In this article, two professors, and I'm probably going to butcher their names, Zhaiquan Zhang and Kuai Zhang from the Shanghai University conducted a survey on children playing violent video games. Playing violent games. So what they did was they took a violent game and a non-violent video game, and what they found was the likelihood that violent computer games may represent a virtual world filled with aggression-related stimuli that cause children to tackle conflicts by resorting to violence. But a counterclaim is that A counterclaim is that it may not actually be violent content that causes the aggressive behavior, but the level of difficulty in a video game. Another name I might butcher, Dr. Andrew Probisky of Oxford Online Institute, provided the study which found that if players feel thwarted by the controls or design of a game, they can wind up feeling aggressive. He goes on to mention that the need to master the game is much more significant than the game's contained violent material. In simpler words, aggression stimulated from video games came from the level of difficulty, not elevated stages of violence. Difficulty does not have to equate to aggression, though. Difficulty can be harnessed into positive motivation. Motivation in several different categories, which includes competition, the experience of defeating others; challenge, the experience of success following effort; diversion, to escape the experience of stress or the real world; fantasy, to experience novel or unrealistic stimuli; social interaction, to have a social experience; and arousal, to experience activated positive emotions. These states represent different reasons an individual would use video games to reach a different psychological state that one couldn't normally attain with the use of video games. Finding the appropriate level of content for the age of the viewer and the correct level of difficulty and motivation is most important. The most common rating system is called the Entertainment Sophomore Rating Board, or ESRB for short. It's a rating system for video games that was released in the U.S. in 1994. The ESR rating system is widely known and considered useful by adults who use the ratings in combination with parental to public concerns, continually improving its methods. This was said in the ESR, and this was said in the article. The ESRB rating system is effective. The rating system that they employed was broken into 5 categories. Each category was determined based on age and maturity level. First, we have early childhood, pretty self-explanatory. Second, E for everyone, which is literally everyone. There is no age restriction. Everyone 10 and up, ages 10 and up. Teen, usually ages from 13 to 17. Then we have mature, which is 17 and up, and then adults, which is 18 and up, and then a rating depending, but that is really important. The positive effects for the video games can be used for medical practices and to help with depression, autism or anxiety, or even PTSD. Some of the minor benefits of video games are hand-eye coordination, as you could see earlier, stress relief, collaboration, or even teamwork.
Point to the computer.
So there are a lot of factors considered when determining whether violent video games cause aggression or violent behavior. I can say with confidence that there is a link between aggression and video games. However, it is not the connection everyone thinks it to be. But the likelihood of an individual stimulating aggression is very low. This is especially true when children, teens, and adults play video games rated for their age and level of maturity. When they are played appropriately, there can be benefits to individuals, and I believe they can outweigh the negative effects often portrayed by the media. That's not the top.
All right. All right, we're going to open it up to questions from our panel and from our audience. Thane, can you talk a little more specifically about some of these positive effects? Like, what's some of the research that goes into that?
Some of the benefits are, like I was saying earlier, are benefits that getting ahead of myself. So, a lot of the benefits can help people that suffer from autism or anxiety or depression, as I was saying earlier. And there's different games and systems that are built for people to play. Like, I know one, for example, to help people with social anxiety, was basically a Sims type game where people could go around and talk to each other. But that was just to help so people didn't have so much trouble with social interaction, because it was easier for them in the video game because it wasn't real. So.
When you're talking about aggression being, linking aggression to video games, are you looking at long-term, like, propensity to aggressive behavior, or are you talking about short-term aggression, like an instance right after the...
I'm talking about short-term, about, kind of what it does when you're playing, but there definitely are long-terms, like trait anger is actually something I was studying, but trait anger basically works if someone is kind of more, more angry. It's kind of part of their personality, and I saw some studies where people with trait anger playing video games over time kind of made them a more aggressive person, as like their personality over time. But what I'm studying is, what I was looking into here was just the short term, which was people at just after playing a game or during playing a game that had higher levels of aggression.
And so how are higher levels of aggression measured? Is there like a biochemical piece to this, or is it more like surveys?
It's usually survey based, but there's every study, every article, everything or research or study I read all had a different way of measuring it, but they were all surveys in a way. Basically, but they weren't direct surveys that ask you, like, how are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? It was kind of like a, one for kids, I know one was they would play a game, and then they would send the kids into a room, and one side was, I think, like balloons and stuff like that, and the other side was like knives and hammers. And basically, whatever side the children went to kind of determined for them was what they felt more aggressive in their study. So. David?
Do you think aggression in video games needs to be solved?
No, I don't.
Why?
I don't think so, because if you look at how long violent video games have been out and how long people have played them, there hasn't been any global or think of it this way. There hasn't been a I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of the right word to use here. There hasn't been a global, it's not a global problem. And so there's no, sorry, I'm just having difficulty wording this. I don't think it's a problem because people have already been playing violent video games, and I don't think it needs to be solved because we've been playing violent video games for so long, and it's something that we can't just kind of turn off. If like somehow the world is like, all right, no more violent video games, that's not going to happen. They're going to keep coming out, and people are going to keep playing them. And with today's world, how used to them most average gamers are, that I don't think there will be a big change. No.
Do you think most people are using violent video games as an outlet to kind of release their anger on something?
I do. That was another study I read, was using them for anger-related issues. A lot of therapy-based video games. Bryce?
So there's a study that said that there are long-term effects of violent video games, showing increased levels of aggression years down the road in about 10% of people who play video games. And then it gave a comparison of, while that doesn't seem like very many, if you had 10 people out of 100, if you have several million playing it, you have several 100,000 people. What level, what percentage do you think it would have to be at to consider violent video games a problem?
I think let me put it this way. I think if there was a noticeable change in the public's behavior of people that played violent video games, like a noticeable change that wasn't just seen by someone who was looking into it, seen by in your daily life, you can see that someone is affected. I think by then it becomes a problem. But till then, I don't think so, and I don't think. Not only do I not think that's going to happen, but if it does, I don't think it's going to happen for a very long time. No.
I was just thinking with what Bryce was saying, is there a way to measure if it's getting out of hand? I was just thinking about what Kyle made us do a couple weeks back with running correlations between if A causes B and B causes C. If there's a way to pick out the numbers of violent crimes to high rates of video game play, and then also just going back to what I said, it's also probably an outlet for a lot of those people too, so just kind of find the balance. How would you feel about that, if that made sense?
I'm confused what your question
how would you
is.
go about running that kind of correlation?
Yeah.
Is that,
How would you know if it was a problem?
Yeah.
What would you measure to determine that it is or is not?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I would go back to what I was, when I was doing that work in your class, was I was looking at mass shootings and school shootings, and I was looking at any because my question was focused around teens and and younger ages. So I looked at crimes committed by number of crimes committed on people under the age of 18, which is really difficult to find, by the way, because nobody keeps that. But I ran that against number of video games that came out that same year, and that's kind of how I looked at it. I think there's better ways to look at it, but I don't know what those are. That's how I did it. you know.
You said you were looking at like the teens and younger ages. Did you do any research that talked about if there's a difference between playing video games at a young age opposed to like when your brain's fully developed and you're an adult? Is there like
Yeah.
repercussions?
Well, for me, instance, I feel, or there's people like me that played video games, or started playing video games they're very young. I've read studies that when people like me that play video games who are very young, have a higher tolerance for video games and violence, violence in video games and violence in like movies and media. So, of anything, that's what like. And then for adults, I don't really know. I didn't do much research on that. So.
Take one more.
And
So in any of the studies you read about video games causing like aggression in teens, did it happen to talk about pre-existing like anger issues and how maybe video games could trigger that?
That's going back to trait anger, which, like I was saying, and if I didn't explain that clearly, is like a characteristic anger, and that can be, and basically that can kind of that can be like the fuel if the video game's the fire. Think of it that way.
All right, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you, Thane. If you could step outside for just a